The instant the old man steadied himself on his cane, the entire courtroom went still as if someone had turned the sound off. His hands shook, carrying what looked like 92 years of unspoken battles. Across from him, his daughter stood with her arms folded, eyes sharp with a confidence that felt almost cruel. Judge Judy watched them both, the tension so thick it could have silenced even the cameras. And when the daughter finally parted her lips to explain why she'd evicted him, everyone in the room braced for a truth none of them were really ready to hear. Her voice seemed to enter the room before she did, sharp along the edges yet trembling in all the places where her pride started to thin. Judge Judy lifted her gaze, immediately sensing the daughter was putting on a performance rather than simply speaking honestly, and the elderly man beside her bowed his head as though preparing for impact. The daughter squared her shoulders, her rigid posture almost rehearsed. She started with polished words, the kind that are practiced in front of a mirror far away from any real accountability. He wanted to leave, she insisted, each word clipped, practiced, hollow. Her father, 92 years old, leaning on a cane that seemed older than some of the spectators, flinched like he was hearing that claim for the very first time. Attention in the courtroom drifted toward him. His hands shook in his lap, not simply from age but from a grief too old and too deep to easily name. He didn't look up at his daughter. His eyes stayed fixed on the floor, the same kind of floor veterans have stared at during roll calls, during terrible news, during those moments when standing tall is no longer possible. Judge Judy examined them in silence. Her gaze moved back and forth between the daughter and the father, as though following two halves of a story that just refused to meet. The daughter went on, describing how stressful it was to have him in her house, how he would not obey her rules, how she couldn't keep doing everything for everyone. Her voice rose with indignation, but her words had no real weight behind them. They floated, brittle, ready to snap. Then the veteran's voice slipped into the space like a whisper carried from a long, lonely road. I never meant to cause trouble. He wasn't defending himself. Instead, he seemed to be apologizing for existing, for growing old, for needing anything at all. His daughter cut across him with a scoff sharp enough to pull a quick glance from the bailiff. Judge Judy leaned back, her silence suddenly louder than any spoken interruption. Sensing that shift, the daughter spoke faster now, piling up explanations like a wall. She claimed he chose to leave, that she had supported him more than anyone else, that she was the one who deserved appreciation. The air in the room tightened. Arrogance has a sound, and that sound filled the courtroom today. The veteran lifted his head, his eyes wet but steady. She said, I should find somewhere that fits me better. His voice cracked not from weakness, but from the betrayal stitched deep inside that one sentence. Judge Judy's eyebrows lifted just a fraction. She'd heard thousands of lies, thousands of fractured truths, and this one carried the echo of something darker underneath. Then she delivered her first quiet strike. Why, she asked, her tone gentle but surgical. Did you really remove him from your home? The daughter swallowed. That was the first real crack. Her response tumbled out too quickly, too confidently for anyone to trust it. Then she laughed, a sound that sliced through the courtroom like a blade. Too quick, too sharp, too obviously false. The laugh of someone terrified of silence, because silence leaves space for truth. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed as the daughter tried to twist discomfort into confidence. The daughter crossed her arms tighter, wrapping fear in a cloak of arrogance. Everyone keeps acting like I abandoned him, she snapped, her voice full of irritation rather than any trace of remorse. He made his own decisions, I did what I could. The words fell dead, hollow enough that everyone could hear the emotional distance she couldn't quite hide. Judge Judy still didn't respond. She merely tilted her head, a small motion that told the room she was taking notes in a language only truth understands. The veteran sat beside his daughter, hands folded together in his lap as if he were trying to make his entire body smaller. His gaze avoided hers and instead drifted down to the faint scratches carved into his cane, tracing memories only he could see. Those tiny marks, those silent stories, spoke louder than most things said out loud. Finally, Judy leaned forward. How long, she asked, choosing each word with intent. How long was your father without a roof over his head after you removed him? The daughter took a breath, too sharp, then let it out in an exaggerated sigh. He was fine, she insisted. He had options, people exaggerate, he wasn't homeless. The defensiveness in her voice tightened the room even more. Judge Judy's eyebrows climbed again. That's not what I asked. A soft murmur rippled through the gallery. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer. The daughter stumbled, trying now to soften her tone. He stayed somewhere. I don't know exactly, but he wasn't out on the street. The more she explained, the more her contradictions began to unravel like fabric fraying with every tug. Judge Judy turned to the old man. Sir, where did you stay? The veteran hesitated, not because he didn't know, but because he was ashamed. When he spoke, his voice was soft and fragile. In my truck, Your Honor, just for a few nights. I didn't want to bother anyone. Silence fell like a heavy blanket over the room. Even the daughter stopped moving. His words settled like dust on smooth wood, quiet, undeniable, impossible to sweep away. His truck, a 92-year-old disabled veteran. Nights spent alone. Judy turned back to the daughter, her tone now colder. You said he had a place. What place is a truck? The daughter opened her mouth but nothing came out. The courtroom watched as her confidence slowly drained away in visible drops. Maybe, she finally muttered, maybe he didn't tell me everything. But Judge Judy knew better. Distance also has a sound, and her excuses echoed with it. Judy opened the file again, flipping back to the timeline the daughter had provided earlier. The dates no longer matched, the story no longer held, something was off, and the judge saw it clearly. Your timeline, Judy said quietly, almost kindly, doesn't match your story. Would you like to try again? The daughter's face went pale, the unraveling had begun. The old man's voice rose again, slowly, like an engine trying to restart after years of sitting idle. The room leaned in, not out of curiosity but out of respect. And this time his daughter didn't interrupt him. He cleared his throat, a small fratal sound that somehow quieted every corner of the room. Judge Judy softened her posture, giving him room to speak. No cameras shifted, no pages rustled. Even his daughter seemed to stop breathing as his story finally pushed its way toward the light. I didn't want to be a problem, he started, his voice thin but steady. Each word felt like it was carved out of memories he would rather have left buried. I only moved in because she said she wanted the company, she said she needed me. The daughter rolled her eyes, but the gesture was smaller now, defensive, not powerful. Still, the old man continued, his hands folded like he was holding something delicate that might break if he let go. She told me she'd been lonely, that she missed having family around. After my wife died, I thought maybe it would help her and me. His voice cracked on that last word. It wasn't dramatic. It was raw, real, painfully human, enough to make the edges of the room blur. Judge Judy asked gently, did you agree to pay her rent? He shook his head slowly with the weight of decades of dignity. I offered to help with groceries, maybe a bill here or there if I could, but I'm on a fixed income. She knew that. I thought we understood each other. The daughter's shoulders went rigid, every inch of her posture straining to hold up a story that was collapsing underneath her. Did she ever tell you, Judy asked carefully, that she felt overwhelmed by your presence? His lips pressed together and shook. No, Your Honor, she said she liked having me there, that it made her feel safe. A heavy pause followed. Then one morning she told me I should start packing, said I needed to find a place more suited for someone like me, someone like me. The phrase hit the floor between them like a bruise. The daughter turned her eyes away. The veteran inhaled, uneven but determined. I didn't want to embarrass her, so I left with whatever I could carry, slept in my truck until I could figure something out. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't want her judged. The irony lingered in the air. The man who had protected her reputation now sat in court because she had shattered his life. Judge Judy's eyes sharpened. She'd seen liars, manipulators, ungrateful children who forgot the hands that raised them. But this story had a different sound, a tenderness beneath the betrayal, rooted not in hatred but careless habit. She leaned forward, voice calm but heavy with purpose. Sir, you mentioned an agreement earlier. What agreement? The daughter's head snapped up, panic rushing across her face. The veteran nodded. Yes, the agreement she and I made before I moved in. The entire room inhaled as one. Judge Judy opened her notebook. Tell me exactly what that agreement was. The daughter's expression crumpled. Her voice lashed out before she could stop it, sharp, defensive, too loud for the question being asked. He promised to pay rent, she blurted. The words tumbled out like a shield thrown in panic. In that instant, the energy of the courtroom shifted. Judge Judy didn't flinch. She simply blinked once, very slowly, as if resetting her patience. The daughter's outburst bounced off the walls, leaving a bitter aftertaste of desperation. The veteran lowered his gaze again, his shoulders folding inward, like a man trying to escape a conflict he never wanted. Rent, Judy repeated, her voice deceptively calm. That's not what he described. The daughter leaned forward, grabbing the podium as though if she held it tight enough her story might stay intact. He agreed to contribute. He said he would help. I can't support an adult who doesn't pay his way. Her voice wobbled on that final phrase, revealing a fear she couldn't quite mask. The judge turned back to the veteran. Sir, did you promise rent? He shook his head without even pausing. No, Your Honor, I told her I'd give what I could from my benefits. That's not the same as rent. His voice carried no anger, only quiet disappointment. Somehow that stung more. The daughter's jaw clenched. He's twisting everything. He always does this. He leaves details out so he looks like the victim. Judge Judy's eyes flicked upward, cold, unshaken. I'm not hearing that in his testimony. The daughter's breath hitched. Judy reached for the folder on her bench. The gentle rustling of paper sounded almost like whispers, like secrets finally getting air. Let's look at the financial arrangement, she said. You submitted bank statements, correct? The daughter nodded too quickly. Judy turned the pages, each flip precise, careful, almost surgical. Then her hand stopped. She stared at one page a bit too long, long enough for everyone to sense something had changed. The daughter watched, swallowing hard. Judy tapped the paper once. According to this, several withdrawals were made from your father's account. The daughter jumped in immediately. Yes, those were his contributions. He gave me that money. Were the withdrawals made by him? Judy asked, her voice now sharpened enough to slice through the air. Silence. The daughter hesitated, lips parting then closing. Her eyes darted side to side, anywhere but toward her father. The veteran frowned, confused. Your Honor, I don't remember taking out that much. Judy leaned in. The light in the courtroom hit the edge of her glasses, drawing a thin gleam across her face, a silent warning. These amounts, she said evenly, each word chiseled with care, don't match the story either of you have told me. The daughter's fingers twitched on the podium, her nails tapping in a panicked rhythm. Did you, Judy asked slowly, every word deliberate, access your father's account without his knowledge? The daughter froze. Her silence was louder than any confession. Judy closed the folder softly. I think it's time we talk about those withdrawals. The room seemed to stop breathing. The daughter's confidence flickered, not enough for her to notice but enough for everyone else to see. A tiny crack, but it changed the temperature of the entire courtroom. Judge Judy's gaze tightened. Suddenly, the daughter was no longer in control of the narrative. The judge slid the folder closer, fingers steady, posture unmoving. Nothing she did was rushed, and that made the moment feel even more dangerous. The daughter stayed rigid at the podium, trying to keep her face unreadable, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted to the folder, then away, then back, like someone tracking a predator's shadow. Judy spoke in a tone that had ended thousands of lies. You claim these withdrawals were his contributions, correct? The daughter nodded, forcing a smile that broke halfway through. Yes, yes, that's right. Then explain, Judy said, flipping the page with that same clinical precision, how withdrawals made on dates when he physically could not drive still ended up coming out of his account. Soft gasps moved through the gallery, even the bailiff shifted, sensing the tide turning. The veteran blinked slowly, confusion hardening into hurt. I was in the hospital that week, Your Honor. I couldn't even walk to the bathroom without help. Judy nodded once. Exactly. The daughter's throat tightened hard enough for everyone to see it. A bead of sweat appeared along her hairline, which she tried to hide by adjusting her posture. She opened her mouth, but her first effort at an excuse came out as nothing more than a shaky breath. I handled his errands, she finally blurted. He gave me his PIN. He trusted me. I only took what he owed me for staying in my home. Judy raised an eyebrow. Owed you? Your father says he only agreed to give what he could, and these withdrawals go beyond his stated income for certain months. Her tone stayed calm, devastatingly calm. The daughter's grip on the podium tightened until her knuckles paled. He forgets things, she insisted. He gets confused. I was helping him. He's making it sound worse than it was. The old man's chin dropped to his chest. Shame settled over him like a shadow he'd never asked to wear. I remember the important things, he whispered. I remember giving you what I could. I never agreed to more. Judge Judy studied the daughter with a piercing stillness. Is that why you removed him from your home, because his income couldn't keep up with your lifestyle? The daughter recoiled like she'd been struck. No, absolutely not. I had every right, Judy cut in, her voice sharp. You had a responsibility. Silence flooded back in, not a gentle silence but a moral one, thick, exposing everything hiding between the lines. The daughter's breaths came quicker now, her eyes glistened with the realization that her story was slipping out of her hands. Judge Judy leaned closer, voice low and steady. If your father was such a burden, why did you keep accessing his account? The daughter opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time, she looked small. Judy tapped the folder once. There's more here, and you're not going to like what comes next. The daughter swallowed. The balance of power had officially shifted. Her voice strained as she continued insisting she'd acted for his good, but the courtroom could hear the fear beneath the words. Real fear doesn't roar, it cracks, and her confidence was beginning to split. The daughter pulled herself taller as if sheer height could protect her from the storm gathering around her. I helped him, she insisted, trying to force stability into every word. Nobody else did. Everyone left it all on me. The courtroom heard the claim, but it didn't soften. If anything, the silence grew denser, like it was simply waiting for her lies to cave in under their own weight. Judge Judy laced her fingers together, elbows resting on the bench, gaze honed to a razor's edge. You keep saying you helped him, she said calmly, but helping someone who never asked for what you took isn't help, that's control. The daughter flinched, trying to hide it with a scoff. You don't know the pressure I was under. He would forget things. He needed structure. The veteran looked up, confusion fogging his eyes. I asked you to remind me about my appointments, he said softly, not to take over my life. Her jaw clenched, anger leaking through the cracks. See, he twists everything. He always has, but her voice shook now, but just enough for Judy to hear the fracture forming. Let's go back to the eviction, Judy said, sliding the file closer. You claimed he refused your rules, yet the neighbor statements, she tapped a specific page, describe something very different. The daughter's eyes snapped to that sheet, panic flickering in them. Judy read aloud, her tone as steady as a scalpel. We saw her forcing him outside with his belongings. He looked confused, asking why she was doing it. Shock rippled quietly across the courtroom. Even those trained to stay silent couldn't suppress a faint gasp. The daughter's composure cracked. That's not what happened. They misunderstood. He stumbled and Judy raised a hand. Silence snapped back instantly. Your father says you told him to find a place more suited for someone like him. Did you say that? The daughter froze. Her lips shaped the start of a denial, but no sound followed. Her gaze swept the room, searching desperately for any lifeline, for someone who might choose her version over the truth that was closing in around her. But all she found were eyes, watching, judging, waiting. The veteran's voice slipped in again, barely more than a whisper, yet powerful enough to break hearts. I never asked to be a burden. The daughter's eyes flickered, guilt, fear, anger, all vying for control. Judy's tone shifted, colder now. Your story is unraveling, and I suggest you stop tugging at threads you can't control. The daughter's breathing went shallow. She knew what was coming. Explain, Judy demanded, leaning forward, why your neighbors reported seeing you push your 92-year-old disabled father out of your home. The daughter's mouth opened, but the truth strangled any words that tried to come. If you were seated in that courtroom, what would you do? Stay quiet or speak up? Her hands trembled, just once, just briefly, but it was enough. Enough for everyone to feel the shift. Enough for Judge Judy to recognize the moment when arrogance starts turning into fear. The daughter clamped down on the podium so hard her knuckles turned bone white. What once looked like confidence now looked like bracing against truth, against judgment, against herself. That neighbor is lying, she snapped, her voice cracking on the last word. People assume things, they don't know what really happened. Judge Judy stared at her, unblinking. Then explain it. What happened? The daughter inhaled sharply, scrambling to piece together a narrative she no longer controlled. He stumbled, she said at last. I tried to help him, but he resisted. He wanted to make a scene. The veteran flinched, not dramatically, just a small tightening of the shoulders, like a man reliving the sting of humiliation he'd tried so hard to bury. Judy noticed. The courtroom noticed. And suddenly the daughter's version felt small, thin, unable to withstand any real pressure. Judy flipped to another page. The sound sliced through the hush. Your neighbors report hearing you yell at him before he ended up outside, she said, voice softer now but more dangerous than any shout. They say you told him he was no longer welcome. The daughter shook her head, too fast, too frantically. People mishear things. They don't understand what it's like to take care of someone who she stopped. Because the truth was sitting a few feet away, staring at the floor, ashamed of existing. The judge leaned forward. Who what? Who raised you? Who protected you? Who trusted you enough to move into your home after losing everything that made him feel secure? The daughter's face tightened. She opened her mouth but couldn't find any words strong enough to hold her collapsing story together. The veteran lifted his head, voice trembling. I never yelled, I just asked why she wanted me gone. His eyes glistened but no tears fell. This wasn't a man who cried easily. This was a man who had weathered storms but never one created by the person he loved most. A low murmur stirred through the gallery, sympathy, disbelief, quiet anger. Judge Judy gave the daughter no space to escape. You had an obligation to care for him properly. Instead, you sent him away without making sure he had somewhere safe to go. And now you expect this court to believe it was all some kind of accident. The daughter's breathing sped up. Each inhale sounded like panic dressed up as outrage. I did what I thought was right. No, Judy cut in, her voice slicing through the air. You did what was easiest. The daughter reeled back as though the words had landed physically. Silence descended again, heavy and unmissable. Judy turned a page slowly, deliberately. And now, she said, locking eyes with the daughter, we need to talk about your brother. The color drained from the daughter's face. The cracks widened. She hesitated just long enough for the truth to slip right through them. In Judge Judy's courtroom, that hesitation might as well have been a confession. Her silence became the clearest answer she'd given all day. Her eyes bounced between the judge and the documents as if she were desperately searching for some version of events that still made sense. But once lies split open, they don't seal themselves back up. They spill, they stain, they reveal. Judge Judy allowed the silence to stretch. She understood the power of a pause, the kind that forces guilt to rise like oil from water. "You still haven't answered my question," Judy said at last, voice low and even. "Did you force your father out of your home?" The daughter straightened, clinging to the final pieces of her performance. "I didn't force him," she insisted. "He was difficult. He wouldn't follow my rules. Judy raised a hand. "Stop." The single word, small but sharp, cut straight through the excuses. "Difficult people don't end up sleeping in trucks," Judy said calmly. "Thrown-out people do." A collective exhale slipped through the gallery. The daughter swallowed, discovering that there was nowhere left to run. "You don't understand," she protested, voice quivering at the edges. "I had so much on my plate. He was overwhelming me." The judge leaned in slightly. "Feeling overwhelmed does not give you permission to abandon a 92-year-old disabled veteran." The daughter's breath stumbled. The moral weight landed squarely on her shoulders. "And speaking of being overwhelmed," Judy added, tapping the folder, "there's something else." She pulled out another stack of documents, thinner, older, stamped with a different case number. The daughter's eyes widened. Panic began to creep across her face in slow, unmistakable motion. "These," Judy said, "are records from a dispute involving your brother." A low murmur floated through the courtroom. The daughter's mouth tightened, her expression flickering between fury and fear. Judy continued, "Your brother accused you of mismanaging funds and trying to pressure him to leave your father's home years ago. Very similar pattern to what we're dealing with today." "That was different?" the daughter snapped, her voice breaking in the middle of the word. "He lied. He always lies." Judy didn't respond right away. She simply watched, allowing the daughter's panic to lay bare more truth than any direct question could. "Is that so?" Judy asked eventually, "because the documents and testimony paint a different picture, one that suggests a pattern of removing people who inconvenience you." The daughter clutched the podium, her hands trembling. "You have no idea what they put me through." The veteran's voice slipped softly into the space. "We just wanted to be a family." The daughter shut her eyes, the weight of guilt hitting harder than any accusation. Judge Judy's tone sharpened. "You weren't trying to care for your father, you were trying to clear your life of anyone who didn't fit neatly into it." The daughter's eyes flew open, horrified. Judy lifted the last page. "Tell me," she said quietly, "why were you trying to push your brother out too?" The daughter froze. There was nowhere left for the truth to hide. Judge Judy's question hung over the room like a blade. The daughter's chest barely moved. Whatever came next wasn't about a single bad decision anymore, it was about a pattern. Her lips parted but nothing emerged. The silence wrapped itself around her like glue, exposing her more thoroughly than any confession could have. Judy watched her, not with anger but with recognition. This wasn't someone who'd simply slipped once. This was someone who had been living behind the same story for years. "I didn't try to get rid of my brother," the daughter suddenly blurted. "He left on his own. He was unstable. He always made things difficult," but the panic in her tone betrayed her. Judy slid the old file into view. "He filed this complaint because you tried to limit his access to your father. You told him he was interfering with your plans. Do you deny that?" The daughter stiffened. "He twisted what I said. He always wanted to be in control. I was the one taking care of everyone." The veteran's grip tightened around his cane, his knuckles turning white. "Your brother loved you," he murmured, soft but clear. "You pushed him away." The daughter spun toward him, anger flaring. "Because he never helped, he never showed up when I needed him." Judy's voice cut clean through the outburst. "Help with what? With caring for your father or with managing his money?" The gallery shifted, the weight of that question dropping hard. The daughter blinked quickly, suddenly fragile. "I was overwhelmed," she whispered. "You don't know what it feels like to be trapped by family responsibility." Judy's voice softened, not from sympathy but accuracy. "Being overwhelmed doesn't justify manipulation, and it certainly doesn't justify leaving a 92-year-old man to sleep in a truck." The daughter's shoulders collapsed inward. Her pride shrank under the fluorescent lights. Your brother left because you made him feel unwelcome, Judy continued. And now your father tells me you did the same to him, two vulnerable people removed from your life, both tied together by the same motive. The daughter shook her head hard. No, I just wanted peace, I just wanted my home back, Peace, Judy repeated slowly, is not found by erasing people. The words landed like a verdict. The veteran raised his eyes. There was no anger there, only ache. I never wanted to cause more distance between you and your brother, he said. I hoped maybe we could still be close again. For the first time, the daughter looked shaken by something other than fear. His sadness shook her defenses more than any question had. Judge Judy rested her hands on the bench. This isn't about one event, it's about a pattern that has hurt the very people who loved you most. The daughter swayed faintly as though truth itself had grown too heavy. Judy leaned forward. So I'll ask again, what were you actually trying to protect? Your house or your image? The daughter didn't answer out loud, her silence did it for her. Do you think remorse should erase guilt, or does justice still demand consequences even when regret shows up late? For the first time, the daughter stopped performing. No more excuses, no more rehearsed lines, just silence. A silence thick enough to finally let the truth breathe. Her shoulders drooped as if the weight she'd been dodging had finally landed on her. The courtroom watched her unravel, not in rage but in exhaustion. She didn't look like a villain as much as a person who'd simply run out of versions of herself to hide behind. I never wanted it to get this bad, she whispered. Judge Judy studied her not with pity but with the kind of understanding born from years of seeing pain disguise itself as hostility. Then why, she asked softly, did you push away the very people who could have helped you? The daughter looked at her father. This time her expression softened, just barely, but enough for a fragile truth to slip through. I was drowning, she admitted. Everyone thought I was strong, that I could handle everything. But I was barely holding myself together. The veteran shifted, confusion shadowing his features. You never said anything, he murmured. You always told me you were fine, she swallowed, blinking hard. Because every time I showed weakness, people just expected more from me. I thought if I let you in, I'd disappear. Judy leaned back, crossing her arms. There's a difference between fear and cruelty. But when fear turns into control, that's when the harm begins. The daughter braced against the truth, but she didn't argue. The air thickened, not with accusation now, but with something heavier, recognition. The judge looked to the veteran. You moved in with her because you wanted to help, didn't you? He nodded slowly. She said she needed me. After her mother passed, I thought I could still be useful. A quiet sadness moved across Judy's face. Two people who loved each other but never spoke the same emotional language. The daughter's voice came back softer. I was mad at him, she admitted, not for what he did, for what he reminded me of, that I wasn't as strong as I pretended. The veteran looked at her with a tenderness that hurt to watch. You were always strong, he said. I just wish you'd let me see you when you were. Her breath caught in her chest. For a moment, she looked like the child he once carried, not the woman who'd thrown him out. Judge Judy allowed the moment to settle, then picked up a sealed envelope from the bench. There's something in here you haven't heard, she said. The daughter's face tightened. What is it? A letter, Judy replied, from someone else who lived through your decisions. Shock darted across the daughter's features. From who? Judy's silence answered before her words did. Your brother, she said quietly, and what he wrote changes everything. The daughter's breath stopped. Judge Judy rested her fingertips on the envelope, holding it like something fragile. The daughter watched with dread. The veteran's breathing shook with old, unspoken guilt. Whatever was inside wouldn't just reveal truth, it would rearrange it. The judge broke the seal slowly, deliberately. The sound was soft, but it sliced through the room like a razor. The daughter flinched. The veteran closed his eyes. The gallery leaned forward, pulled by invisible strings. This, Judy said, unfolding the paper, was submitted by your brother as soon as he learned about today's hearing. She glanced at the daughter. He believed the court needed the full picture. The daughter shook her head, panic flickering. He just wants to make me look bad. He's always hated me. Judy lifted a hand. Hatred is easy to recognize. This isn't that. She began to read. Dad never wanted to be a burden to her. He believed in her more than she believed in herself. When she got overwhelmed, instead of asking for help, she pushed us both away. A tremor moved through the daughter's shoulders. Judy continued, I left because she made it clear I wasn't welcome, but I never stopped caring about her or him. I only wanted him to be safe. The veteran's lips parted, stunned by his son's kindness. Please understand, the letter went on, she wasn't always like this. Fear changed her, pressure changed her, but pain doesn't excuse cruelty. She hurt him more than she realizes. The daughter brought a hand to her mouth, her breath shaking, her eyes filled not with performance but with the shock of the truth finally slipping past her defenses. Judge Judy looked up from the letter, gaze steady. Your brother isn't trying to destroy you, he's trying to explain you. The daughter's voice came out as a rasp. I never asked him to. No, Judy answered, but that's the tragedy. The people who loved you the most spent years trying to understand you while you spent those same years shutting them out. The daughter broke, not in a loud scene but with a fragile, shuddering collapse. I didn't know he still cared, she whispered. I thought he was done with me. The veteran leaned forward, eyes glistening. We never stopped caring, he said, not your brother, not me. The daughter finally looked at him, really looked, and something inside her cracked enough for a little light to seep in. Judy laid the letter down gently. There's one more question that has to be asked, she said. It won't be easy to answer. The daughter slowly straightened, bracing herself. Judy turned to the veteran. Sir, is there something you never told her, something this court needs to hear? His eyes widened slightly, the question reaching further back than the others. The daughter turned toward him. Dad. He gripped his cane, voice trembling. There's something I should have said a long time ago. The room went still. Truth had finally risen to its feet. His fingers tightened on the cane, shaking with a confession carried for too many years. The daughter leaned in, breath fragile, afraid his words might break her. Judge Judy watched, knowing some truths don't slice, they carve. The old man took a slow breath that rattled in his chest. His voice arrived like a memory, tired of being silent. I should have told you this long before things became so full of distance and anger, he began. The daughter's eyes shone with confusion. Told me what? He looked down, tracing the worn grain of his cane like a map of all his sacrifices and regrets. When your brother left, it wasn't just because of you, he said quietly. It was because of me. Judy's gaze sharpened. The daughter stiffened. The veteran pushed on, shame heavy in his tone. He and I argued. I told him that you needed me more than he did, that he should give you space, that I'd stay with you. Her mouth fell open. You chose me over him. He nodded. I thought I was helping. I thought you were fragile. I thought your brother was strong enough to do without me for a while. The daughter's breath fractured. But he said you pushed him away, she managed. Tears gathered at the corners of the old man's eyes. I did, not out of anger, out of love, misplaced love. I wanted to protect you, but I ended up breaking him, breaking both of you. A hush lay over the room. Even the air felt like it had stopped to absorb the weight of that truth. The daughter pressed a hand to her chest like she was trying to steady a heart that had suddenly become too heavy. You never told me, she whispered. All this time I thought he left because of me, because he hated me. He never hated you, her father said gently. He stepped back because I asked it of him, because I thought you needed me more. Her face folded inward, grief, guilt. And something deeper, the realization that her entire story of abandonment had been built on a misunderstanding she never knew about. Judge Judy let the silence speak before stepping in softly. This is what happens when truths stay unspoken. They grow in the dark, they change who we become. The daughter covered her mouth with a trembling hand. I pushed you both away because I thought you'd already abandoned me. The veteran's voice broke with a tender pain. You were never alone, I was always choosing you. I just never stopped to see how much it was costing. A tear finally escaped down her cheek. The first genuine tear of the whole hearing. I didn't know, she whispered, I didn't know any of this. Judge Judy leaned in, her tone gentler but anchored in justice. Now you do, and now we must face not only what you felt, but what you did. The daughter lowered her head. Her father studied her with love and regret tangled together. The courtroom collectively held its breath. Judy tapped the bench lightly. We're not finished measuring the damage. The daughter looked up, tears trembling. The reckoning was only just starting. Her voice returned, but it was different. No sharp edges, no defensive spike, just a quiet, fragile sound finding its place in a room full of truths. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, almost embarrassed to be seen crying. For a moment she seemed younger, not in years but in vulnerability. as if the years of resentment had finally slid off and shattered on the floor. She drew a shaky breath. I felt abandoned my whole life, she murmured, like I was always the one expected to be strong, to be the responsible one, and when Mom died I thought nobody cared how much I was breaking. Her father's eyes filled with heartbreak. I cared, he said, I just didn't know how to show it. She nodded slowly, painfully. I know that now, but back then I blamed you, I blamed him, I blamed everybody. Judy listened with a silence that wasn't empty, it was packed with meaning, waiting for judgment that hadn't yet been spoken. She let the daughter keep going, not to indulge her, but because truth often needs to fully surface before accountability can land. I thought, the daughter said, her voice unsteady, that if I held everything together someone would finally notice how much I was carrying, but no one did, so I got angry, bitter, her breath snagged, and I took it out on the people I should have held closest. The veteran bowed his head, shame rolling off him, not for himself but for how much she'd been hurting and how long he'd missed it. Judy finally spoke. You suffered, she said, but suffering doesn't give you the right to cause harm. Explaining your actions is not the same as excusing them. The daughter nodded, not in defiance but in surrender. I know that now. Her fingers shook as they tightened around the podium. I didn't see how much I was hurting him. I thought he'd be okay. I thought I needed space more than he needed a home. And when did you realize you were wrong? Judy asked. The daughter's answer came out as a whisper, when I saw him in this courtroom, standing there alone because of me. The veteran's breath trembled, his composure buckling just slightly. I never wanted you to feel trapped, he said. I never wanted you to think you were carrying everything by yourself. Her voice cracked for real this time. I know, Dad, I just didn't know how to stop being angry at you. Judy leaned closer, voice calm but firm. Resentment becomes cruelty when you act on it, and cruelty leads to consequences when it harms someone who trusted you. The daughter's eyes filled again. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Her apology hung in the air, too late to undo what had been done but powerful enough to shift something inside the room. Judy's expression softened but only slightly. Admitting harm is the beginning, now we have to decide what comes next. The daughter's breath shuddered, she knew it wasn't over. Do you understand what you took from him? Judy asked. The daughter's features contorted, guilt finally overshadowing fear. She turned to her father, really turned, without anger or armor. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, barely audible. I didn't realize how much I needed you until you were gone. The veteran looked at her with impossible tenderness. He didn't answer with words. He didn't have to. His silence was the same quiet permission he'd given her for years. She stepped a little closer, just enough so her words wouldn't echo. When Mom died, I felt the ground vanish. And you were grieving too. I thought you didn't have room for my pain. She pressed her hand to her chest, so I shoved it all down, and the bigger it got, the more I pushed you away. Judy watched, not with judgment now but with the solemn awareness of something finally surfacing. The daughter went on, her voice cracking where she tried to keep it steady. I convinced myself you didn't care, that no one did, and it was easier to believe that lie than to admit I was drowning. She brushed another tear away. I'm sorry, Dad, not just for what I did, but for who I turned into while I did it. The veteran's shoulders shook. I should have seen you, he whispered. I should have realized how much you were hurting. His words were too gentle, so gentle they almost hurt to hear. The daughter almost pulled away from them, because sometimes forgiveness cuts deeper than blame. Judy stepped in with quiet authority. Hurt people often hurt other people, but in the end it isn't the pain that defines us, it's the choices we make when we're face to face with it. The daughter nodded through her tears. I didn't choose right, she admitted. I chose fear, I chose anger, I chose to push people away, and he's the one who paid for it. The veteran extended a trembling hand, not to accuse but to steady her. The daughter hesitated, then rested her hand in his. The courtroom absorbed the moment like dawn light spilling into a dark room. You didn't deserve what I did, she whispered. You deserved kindness, safety, a home. The old man squeezed her hand, fragile but certain. I only ever wanted us to stay a family. Her breath shuddered, then Judge Judy spoke with gravity but not cruelty. That might still be possible, she said, but first there has to be accountability. The daughter inhaled sharply, she knew the next part. Judy raised her gavel slightly. It's time for my decision. The entire courtroom braced. The gavel hadn't even dropped, but the room already held its breath. Judge Judy sat taller, the weight of everything they'd heard sitting behind her eyes, and the daughter, shaking now, finally understood that accountability isn't revenge, it's consequence. The silence was almost sacred, not quiet, not empty, just full. Full of truth that had finally clawed its way into the open after being buried under fear, blame, and silence for years. The veteran sat upright, his hands still trembling atop his cane. The daughter stood straighter too, but her posture was changed. There was no arrogance left, only acceptance. Judge Judy began. This case, she said, voice solid as rock, isn't only about a father being put out of a house. It's about a pattern, emotional neglect, misuse of finances, and distance built out of fear instead of honesty. Her gaze locked onto the daughter, firm but not vicious. You broke your father's trust, you took money from his account, you removed him from your home without making sure he was safe. These were your choices and they caused real harm. The daughter nodded, tears rolling freely now. She didn't bother to wipe them away. Judy continued, but we've also seen something else. Not pure malice, but pain. Pain you buried, pain that rotted into resentment, and resentment that turned into cruelty. The gallery held absolutely still. Judge Judy turned to the veteran, her tone softening with respect. Sir, you've shown dignity, restraint, and compassion in circumstances that would break many. You deserved better. The old man bowed his head. Thank you, Your Honor. Judy straightened, lifting the gavel. Here is my ruling. The daughter tensed but kept her eyes on the judge. You are responsible, Judy said. You will repay the funds taken from your father's account without his knowledge, every cent. Full restitution is ordered. The daughter nodded, not defeated but humbled. Additionally, Judy went on, there will be a period of no contact until your father chooses, freely and without pressure, what kind of relationship, if any, he wants moving forward. Healing cannot grow where obligation is forced. A soft sob escaped the daughter, not from panic this time, but from the pain of realizing what she'd truly lost. The veteran turned to her, his voice full of tenderness that rose even above the verdict. I still love you, he whispered, I always will. Her breath broke, her shoulders caved in. But she nodded, accepting both the pain and the love. Judge Judy lowered the gavel, her final words carrying the quiet thunder of truth. In this courtroom, justice is not revenge, it's clarity, it's responsibility, and it's the opportunity, if you choose it, to become better than your mistakes. The gavel fell, a sound like an ending, a sound like the start of something new. Arrogance collapsed under truth. But love, even cracked, even shaken, still found the strength to stand.